A flight from London going to Dubai had to be aborted because a guy took a dump so big it actually brought the plane down. After his sanitary stop, the entire toilet was covered in liquid poo. Passengers were complaining about an unbearable odor, and eventually, the pilot went in to check the situation. Upon examination, he concluded that it was unsafe to continue the flight due to health and safety reasons. The pilot proceeded to tell the passengers over the PA system that the plane would return to London because of an issue with liquid fecal excrements. Everyone aboard had to spend a night in a hotel and waited until the next day for a flight replacement. An Emirates flight going from Sydney to Bangkok turned into a vomit and tear-stained nightmare because of a suspect package. The flight crew started panicking and collected all of the available pillows in the plane to stack them up on what they thought was a bomb. They even went as far as removing lavatory doors off their hinges. Some of the flight attendants looked so frightened that it made the passengers freak out. The people aboard were starting to cry, and some of them were vomiting uncontrollably. The passengers were kept completely in the dark about what was going on, so they started to speculate, thinking they were about to die. The plane went in for an emergency landing in Brisbane to sort things out. The suspect package eventually turned out to be a phone left by a passenger on the previous flight. Absolute mayhem broke out during a flight from Kinshasa to Bandundu when a crocodile escaped and started running up and down the aisle. One of the passengers had stuffed the animal in a sports bag and put it in the overhead luggage compartment. During the descent, the reptile found a way to get out and scare the hell out of the flight attendants. One attendant ran into the cockpit to get away from the danger, only to be followed by a stampeding group of passengers. It got very crowded and hectic in the cockpit, causing a weight shift in the small turboprop aircraft. This made it impossible for the pilot to maintain control over the plane while they were descending. They eventually crashed, killing 17 passengers and the 2 pilots. One of the passengers survived, and ironically, the crocodile too. A flight from Santiago to Sydney turned out to be a very uncomfortable one after a large portion of the passengers went on a vomiting and diarrhea spree. A group of 26 teenagers went to Brazil to visit the Catholic World Youth Day, where they all contracted an aggressive disease. As the plane only had 10 toilets, a game of musical chairs was the result for the affected people. It's very rare to have a large group of people experiencing an onset of symptoms all at the same time during a flight like this. The plane was still able to land in Sydney as scheduled, where ambulance personnel were waiting to drag the sick passengers out on stretchers. They received medical treatment on the spot, and buckets were handed out to those who needed them. When Arthur Berkowitz walked up to his seat on a flight from Anchorage to Philadelphia, he was shocked to find an obese man taking up his chair. The man was supposed to be sitting next to him, but because of his weight problem, he spilled over into Berkowitz's seat. As a result of this, Berkowitz had to stand in the aisle during the entire flight, even while landing and taking off. What made things worse is that this occurred on one of the longest non-stop domestic flights in the United States, with a total flying time of almost 7 hours. In compensation for the horrific flight experience, U.S. Airways refunded a quarter of the total ticket price. Not that much for putting a man through something that's actually against the safety rules. It remains to be seen if Berkowitz will ever fly with U.S. Airways again.